So our next exercise, what we're going to do is start with understanding a bit about compositing. So that's when I take data from disparate sources and mash them into a new image, okay? Now there's lots of different ways to do this. What we're going to do is create a canvas from scratch with the dimensions and resolution that we want, and then import the objects into that canvas. And that working document will be the size and the quality that we expect to have when we're done, okay? So I have 4 images here, and I will provide you with these images so you can follow along. First, we have this picture of clouds. I go up to image, I go to mode, it's an RGB color. I'll go down to image size, and it's 900 by 600 at 300 DPI. Let's go to the next one. I'm gonna go to Eagle. I'm gonna go to image. I'm gonna go to mode, it's an RGB color. Image size is 640 by 424 by 640 at 72 DPI. Let's go to the next one. We'll go to Dune. This is a TIFF, but it's an RGB color. Let's go, so I can sit right there, but we can also go here, image, mode, RGB color. And then let's go down to image size, and it's 600 by 600 at 72 DPI. And let's look at the last image. We have this package. Let's go to image, and let's go down to image size. And it's 1100 by 736, 72 DPI. And then also let's go to image and see that it's an RGB color. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new canvas, and we're going to import these images into this canvas. And so we're going to be copying from one image and pasting into our target canvas. So we're going to make selections in these different documents. I'm going to show you some different techniques for making selections, and then we're going to import that content into our target canvas. So we're going to go to File, we're going to go to New, and right now let's use HD. We're going to go to Film and Video, and we're just going to make a canvas that is 1080p. 1920 by 1080. So we're working at film or video or on-screen resolution. We're using pixels. We're using a resolution of 72 pixels per inch. So this would be something that was either for a video or for on-screen or for the web, right? We're going to click create. Let's do one more thing. Let's make that background transparent for now, and then we'll come back and look at the other options later. So we're making a canvas. This is our target canvas. We're going to click create. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to each one of these images, and we're going to import them and place them into this document. Let's start with the clouds. So in this case, I just want all of the clouds in the other document. So I'm just going to go up. I'm going to choose select and choose all. I'm going to go up to edit and choose copy. So I only have one layer. So everything in this layer has been selected, and it's all been placed up in the clipboard. Now I'm going to go over to my untitled canvas, and I'm going to choose edit and paste. So the images that we've chosen are much smaller than our canvas. And I want to explain some things to you about that. You can get away with scaling things up about 20% before it's noticeable. But you can always scale images down without there being any penalty. But for this exercise, we're not going to worry about that too much. We're just going to scale the images up as we see fit, because right now we're just understanding a little bit about how to composite. So what I want to do is I want to make this cloud fit over the whole canvas. So I'm going to go up to edit. I'm going to go to free transform, and I'm going to uncheck. I'm going to uncheck the constrained proportions, because I want to, as you can see here, the proportions are slightly different, and I'm just going to stretch this until it matches. And then I'm going to click the commit button. And what I want to do is I want to save as I go. right? So I want to keep working, and then every single time I get to a point where I like what I have, I want to click the save button. So I reward myself with the save every single time I get to a point where the document is to my liking. The other way to think about saving is to save incrementally every half hour, every 40 minutes. Either way, you want to get in the habit of saving early and saving often. That way, if your computer crashes or something happens, you will, it's an insurance policy so that you won't lose all of your work. So let's go up and let's do a save. Let's go to File, let's choose Save As. And we're going to call this EXER4. And we're going to save it as a PSD. And we're going to click Save. Okay. And then this maximize compatibility. Every time it comes up, I'm just going to click OK. So let's continue. Let's go to the package. So I just click from one canvas to the next. And I've got all these canvases open. I can only edit one at a time, but I can go from one canvas to the other by clicking on the tab. Right? And when I look at that tab, it tells me the name of the art. It tells me what percentage I'm looking at it on the screen. It tells me what layer I'm in, and it tells me what color mode I'm in, and the pixel depth, 8-bit per pixel. We're going to go to the one, it's just got a file name, but it's a package. All right. So what I want to do is show you some different ways to make a selection. So the first thing I want to show you is, if you go down 4, is the object selection tool. So this object selection tool is just fantastic. It's a newer tool, and it really, really is cool. So what I do is I just, especially when I have something like this, it's just kind of floating on a transparent, not transparent, but on a flat background like this, that object selection tool works really well. I'm going to just drag over the whole thing like this and let go, and you'll see that it snapped and found all the edges. And so it did a really good job, except there's a couple of places where it fell apart, where it didn't snap. So with that same tool, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click. And what the Shift key does is it adds. And so that's not working. So I want to add to that area. Okay. So basically, when you make a selection, lots of times a selection is not perfect. Lots of times you may need to add or subtract from a selected region. And I can use the same selection tool or a different selection tool. So here, along this edge here, it's going out too far. And along this edge here, it's going in too much. So I can add and subtract to and from the selection. I use the same selection tool or another selection tool. So I'm going to grab the lasso tool, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to drag it along that area and then all the way around and let go. And you'll see that what I've done is I've added that in. Now here, I want to subtract. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key. I'm going to drag it along that area, and then I'm going to come all the way around and let go. And so I can go back and forth on my document like that until I get it just right. Okay. So that's one way that I could make a selection. Let's put this on fit screen. Let's zoom out a little bit more. So now what I can do is I can choose edit and copy. And then I can go over to my target canvas and I can choose edit and paste. And there's my document. After I've pasted it in, I can grab my move tool. I can move it anywhere I want on the screen, and I can free transform it. Now I'm going to undo that, even though that worked pretty well. And I'm going to go back to that, and I'm going to go to select and choose deselect. And I'm going to take you through some other ways that I could make this selection, right? So that object selection tool is a wonder, okay? Let's look at the quick selection tool. So the quick selection tool helps you find edges, and I can use this one of two ways. One is that I could rub it over the outside of this box like so. And once again, it did a pretty good job, but it's not perfect. Let's zoom in and let's see if we can't fix this selection using the quick selection tool, right? Once again, I can push in and out. So if I hold down the Alt key and drag there, I've pushed that selection out. I've subtracted from it. It's pushed in. I want to subtract, and I'll hold down the Alt key and drag there too, right? And then I'll hold down the Alt key and drag here. And if I wanted to add, I can hold down the Shift key and I could add to the selection, or hold down the Alt key and subtract from the selection. So that's a pretty good selection. Okay, this top area here still needs help. All right, let's go to select and choose deselect. What else can I do? I could grab that quick selection tool and I could rub it over the box, right? Let's see if that works. And we managed to create a pretty decent selection by rubbing that tool over the box. So sometimes it's easier to select the background and take the selection and invert it. Sometimes it's easier to go right after the object and select it. Either of those work just fine. Let's go to select and choose deselect. Let's look at the magic wand tool. So I grab the magic wand tool. You remember the magic wand tool makes a selection based on a range of colors. Sometimes you'll start with a selection tool, it won't work. You try something else and it may work better. So don't be afraid to experiment. And sometimes you make a selection and it's not going to be perfect. And then what you have to do is you have to modify the selection. Okay, oftentimes the selection will not be perfect and you will either need to add to the selection by holding down the shift key or subtracting by holding down the alt key. So in this case, I'm going to click to the background and it's made a really decent selection here. But down here, it's gotten into some weirdness. I'm going to hold down the shift key and continue clicking. And so in this case, that one didn't work as well, did it? It did a lot of weird things down here, right? It didn't really do. So in this case, maybe that's not the best tool for this particular job. Let's go to select and choose deselect. Now, I could also use the lasso tool. If I grab the lasso tool, I can drag around this thing, but the problem is I'm grabbing so much of the background until it looks silly, right? Select, deselect. So if I tried to grab this lasso and just kind of follow the edge of this document, I'd find that to be pretty difficult. Select, deselect. But there is an alternative, which is the polygonal lasso tool. So what the polygonal lasso tool does is it puts down an anchor point every time you click. So you click, drag, actually you click, let go, move, and then click again. So you don't even really drag it. You just click, move it, and click. And then the more often I click, the more often I can conform to the edges of the shape. So when I'm going over a curve, I just click more often. And then I just kind of conform to that by clicking and clicking. And now, if you make a mistake, if you click errantly, you can hit the backspace key. And the backspace key, each time you hit the backspace key, will back up 1 point, 1 spot, right? And then the important thing to understand about this is that if something goes wrong, the best thing to do, like for instance, lots of times you get about halfway around an object, and if you double click, it closes. So let's say I double click and I close. I'm like, oh no, what do I do? Well, at this stage, there's 2 things I could do. One is just start over, just go to select, deselect, and keep going. The other is I could continue adding to the selection, right? So with the same tool, if I hold down the shift key and I continue clicking all the way around to the other side, and I'm doing good work, but not perfect work, because I don't want to spend too much time on this because you're sitting there waiting patiently for me. But if I was doing this for real, I'd probably be a little bit more careful. And I'm going to conform this and go all the way around. So this is something you may find yourself doing. So now when I click, what I need to do is go around this edge here, come back over and click or double click to close that. And I've included all that, right? So I just click and keep clicking as I move my cursor around. If I accidentally close the selection, I can either start over or shift to add, alt to subtract. So let's say I wanted to subtract the bow from here. If I held down the alt key, I could click around and I could subtract that element from the selection, right? So I can work back and forth inside of a selection and I can modify that selection until I have it exactly the way I want. So as you see here, I'm going all the way around and I'm literally subtracting this from the other selection. And then I just go all the way back around. When you get back around to where you started, you'll either get a circle for close, or when you get to where you want to stop, just double click and it'll do the same thing. It will subtract or add based upon what you're doing. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go to select and choose deselect, all right? So those are some different ways that I can select this image. I think the best one was probably still either the quick selection or the object selection. Let's go with the quick selection. Let's go around the edge of the box. And then let's add in the rest of the areas by holding down the shift key. Oops, hold down the shift key. So I can just kind of click there and then click here and kind of scrum that out a little bit. There. And that's looking pretty good. Now I could clean that edge up a little bit more, but I'm going to go with what I have. So now, right now, what's selected? The background. The background is selected. So sometimes it's easy to select the foreground and then invert it. Sometimes it's easy to go right after the object. So I've got the background selected. I want to invert that. I'm going to select, I'm going to choose inverse. Now I'm going to choose edit. I'm going to choose copy. Now I'm going to go to my target canvas. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to choose paste. Now I can grab this and I can position it anywhere I want on the screen. Okay. All right, let's go to the next object. Let's go to the dune. And what I want in this case is I want the dunes, but not the sky. So what are some different options here? Let's look at some different ways I could do this. Let's go up and let's try the object selection tool. And let's see if we can trap just the dune. Excellent. See, that worked just fine. Let's go to select and see and use this deselect. Let's go up and let's try quick selection. Let's rub it over the dune. Okay, that worked perfectly fine too. Select deselect. What else might work? Let's go over and let's use the magic wand tool. Let's click into here. So when I click into here with the magic wand tool, you'll see that I have some issues, right? So the selection isn't perfect, but I can modify the selection by holding down the shift key and clicking into the regions there that I want to add. And I've cleaned that selection up, and that's usable selection. Let's go to select and choose deselect. I can also, with that magic wand tool, click into the background. Once again, it's not perfect, but if I hold down the shift key and continue clicking, I can add all that area in. I'll go to select and deselect. So those are a bunch of different ways that I could modify the selection. Let's use the polygonal lasso tool. So I'm just going to start on the edge here, and I'm just going to keep clicking along, right? And then just go all the way around the edge, like so. And I want to click right on the edge of that object. And then I'm going to go all the way down to the outside here, all the way back around, and then click to close. And that's good. I could have been a little bit more precise, but you get the idea. I'm going to go to select and deselect. Let's look at another selection tool, which is the magnetic lasso. I'm not a really big fan of this one, but it is a tool. And so let's take a look at it. So the idea with this one is that it kind of helps find the edges as you drag here. Just kind of drag along or click. And it's kind of doing like a little analysis. And it kind of works to help find that edge. Once again, I can use the backspace to undo. Okay. And I can keep clicking along that edge until I get it the way I want, and then all the way down to the bottom, and then all the way to the other side, and back up. And then the magic wand tool is it's a little funky for me. Probably could do that again. Let's go to select, deselect. So you get the idea. Not my favorite tool. Usually, if I'm gonna get to around to the point where I'm using this one, I'll just use a mask. All right. But anyway, that's basically how that works. I just kind of conform it, click along those edges, come back in, gonna go all the way out, go all the way around, and then close it. Double click to close. And as you can see, that's a decent selection, not great. Select, deselect. So what we're doing here is we're looking at different ways that I can select the dune. And we looked at a bunch of different methods. Let's go back and let's use the quick selection tool and let's rub it over the dune. And there we go. That's a pretty good selection there. Now we're going to copy this. So 90% of the time I use copy. And the reason why is because if you make a mistake and you lose your edit, the original is still there. So I hardly ever use cut unless there's a specific reason why I need to cut. And what we're doing is we're copying from different canvases and pasting them into a canvas. We've made a target canvas, so we know the proportions and the dimensions of our target canvas. And so I'm going to choose edit and copy. I can also use the keyword if I want. cut, copy, paste, and undo, Command or Control Z, X, C, and V. And I don't really stress a lot of keyboard commands, but understanding how to use cut, copy, paste, and undo will speed up your ability to produce. Let's go over to exercise 4 canvas, and let's go to edit and choose paste. And there's our dune. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to free transform it. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to hit that free transform tool, and I have turned off the proportion link so I can stretch this, and I'm going to make the dune. Well, let's make it stretch across like so. Okay. So we're stretching it almost to the point where it's getting a little blurry on the edges, but it's going to be okay for just this exercise. So now I've got my dune. I can grab my move tool and I can choose how high or low the dunes are. And then I can choose whether or not the package is behind or in front of the dunes. And then I can grab my move tool and I can position that package anywhere on the screen. Okay, so this is a composite, and this is one of those really cool ways that you can just make anything you can imagine, right? Let's go over and let's grab the eagle. So I'm going to click on, now, let's save, let me go to window, let's arrange everything to tabs, and let's go over and save our canvas. So we're going to do a save periodically. All right, now let's go over to the eagle. And let's zoom in on it. And once again, we're looking at different methods for selecting this little critter here. So let's start with the object selection tool. And I'm going to trap it over the eagle. And pretty good. That's a pretty good selection. Let's go to select. Now, you see that there are some fine tufts of feathers here. And what we'll do in upcoming exercises, I'll show you how to finesse that with some masking, but we're not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to go to select and choose deselect. Let's go down to the quick selection tool, and I can either rub that quick selection tool over the eagle. Let's see how that works. And it worked okay, except it kind of broke apart down here. So I'll hold on the Alt key and I'll snap it to it there. Okay, there you go. That's a little, let's see if we can push it back out a little bit. Okay. Now I can use any other selection tool with this selection tool. So if I went back and grabbed my rectangular marquee tool and held down, now if I start another selection, it's going to think that I've lost interest in the previous selection, unless I hold down the Shift or the Alt key. If I hold down the Shift or the Alt key, Photoshop knows that I'm trying to modify the current selection. So if I hold down the Shift key, I'm adding to the selected region. I'm going to undo that. If I hold down the Alt key, I'm subtracting from the selected region. And I can do that with any of the selection tools. So I can start with any selection tool and then modify it with any other selection tool. I'm going to go to select and choose deselect. Now, what else could I do? I could grab that quick selection tool and rub it over the background. Maybe that'll work better. Oops, it went a little crazy down here. Let's see how it does over here. I think it did better I think it worked a little bit better this way. Now I'm going to hold the Alt key. I'm going to push that selection out. And then I could even go in, oops, let's go the other way. I could even go in with my lasso tool and clean it up even more. So that's not a bad selection. So what I want to do, right, let's look at the magic wand tool. Let's go to select and choose deselect. Let's go to the magic wand tool. And if I click on the eagle, that's going to take a lot of work. I might be able, that's not going to work. Let's go to select, deselect. Let's try the magic wand tool in the background. The background is not exactly all the same color, but it's similar, right? And the magic wand tool makes a selection based on what? Based on a range of colors that we choose, right? So let's take the tolerance for that magic wand tool. It's still set kind of high. Let's set it to 33. And then let's click in the background. And it's done a pretty good job of making a selection. So I'm going to take that selection and I want to invert it. I want the eagle. So I'm going to go to select. I'm going to choose inverse. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to choose copy. Now I'm going to go to my target canvas. I'm going to choose edit. I'm going to choose paste. And I've got my eagle in there. The eagle is landed. I'm going to grab him, put him down in the lower right hand corner because he's cut off here and here. So I'm going to just put him down in the lower right hand corner. So that's the idea of a composite. And that's one of your exercises. Let's do a little bit more with this. So one is that I can copy any of these layers. So if I click on this layer here, I can grab it. I could go to, well, I could do it two ways. I go to select, choose all, go to edit, copy, edit, and paste. Now I'm pasting to the same canvas, right? So now I've got two eagles. The other way is to click on that layer, drag it down to the make new layer button. Now I've got three eagles, so I could put another eagle there, right? Then I could shuffle the order of these eagles if I want, right? I can change the order of these eagles, right? Anytime I want, right? I can click into a layer and I can free transform it. So I can go to edit, I could go free transform, and I could either lock the width to the height so it's transformed proportionately, and I could rescale, resize, or rotate after I've placed that object in. All right. I can click into a layer and I can make an object transparent. I'll click into the layer, grab the opacity slider, and I can make that object ghost-like. Okay. Let's stop here. When we come back, we're going to work with a couple of more ideas with this, with the idea of compositing.